It's Friday, the 26th of April, 2024. Welcome to the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, 5 stories, 5 minutes, let's go. Story number 1 is actually a really big one. BHP has made a $60 billion takeover bid for British resources giant Anglo American, which would make the big Australian the largest copper producer in the world.
It would also add to its coke and coal business and its iron ore presence in Brazil. Under UK law, the all-scrip bid must be formalised by May 22. It took many investors by surprise. Now, ahead of any transaction, Anglo American would spin off the South African iron ore and platinum businesses that make up a large part of its earnings. If the deal goes ahead, it would be one of the largest mining mergers globally in many, many years. BHP is the world's largest listed mining company. It's about 4 times the size of Anglo American. The UK-based miner is a major copper producer in South America, mines coal used in steel making next to BHP's mines in the Bowen Basin in Queensland. It also mines manganese in Australia, produces nickel, diamonds, iron ore and platinum from mines in Brazil, China, Peru and South Africa. Anglo American's share price is off about 10% in the last year, obviously making that a little bit more attractive to BHP.
There's a lot in this, isn't there, Sean? What's the big attraction for BHP, particularly if it wants Anglo American to sell its South African iron ore and platinum business?
Copper. Well, copper is probably the most prized asset. In a statement yesterday, BHP says the two miners combined would have a leading portfolio of large, low-cost, long-life Tier 1 assets focused on iron ore and metallurgical coal and future-facing commodities like potash and copper. Previously, boss Mike Henry has said he wants more copper, last year saying there was a $300 billion shortfall in investment in the commodity, which is essential to the electrification of the global economy. So the main play in this one for BHP, copper.
Okay, on to story number 2 now, and not great news for homeowners just hanging out for a rate cut. Bond market investors now think there is little chance of one this year, while market economists are suggesting early 2025 is the most likely time for a reduction following Wednesday's hot inflation figures.
The inflation rate accelerated to a higher than expected 1% during the March quarter, up from 0.6% 3 months earlier. The full-year inflation rate, though, it dropped from 4.1 to 3.6%. The Reserve Bank's all-important preferred measure, trimmed mean inflation, it takes out volatile price movements, it was up 1% for the quarter, 4% for the year. Higher prices were widespread, but things like rent, education, food, they were particularly high. Ahead of the release, bond investors had priced in a 70% chance of a rate cut this year. Now they reckon it's just a 6% chance. In fact, there's even a slight chance of a rate hike. Economists reckon that Australia is following the path of the US. Inflation fell quickly to around 4% in the US, but is then really struggling to get below 3%. Looks like that's what's happening in Australia.
Story number 3, former Star Entertainment chief executive Robbie Cook has told an inquiry that he felt the gaming group was under assault from the regulator, a view he formed after he was told the government-appointed manager was meeting with law firms.
Mr Cook left the company in March after the New South Wales Independent Casino Commission claimed he was arrogant, not listening and not moving fast enough to correct governance and cultural issues uncovered by an earlier inquiry led by Adam Bell SC. Now, on Wednesday, counsel assisting the inquiry asked Mr Cook about messages he sent to Star Chair David Foster, in which the two men discussed preparing for war. Mr Cook told the inquiry he was on high alert and he had a sense of being a little under assault when he saw a meeting scheduled between law firms and special manager Nick Weeks, according to a report in the Financial Review. He said his response was a little emotive. The relationship between Mr Cook, Mr Foster and the regulator has been the focus of the inquiry, which has already heard it deteriorated significantly over the past year.
Story number 4, a bit of good news, Sean. More planes are landing on time than at any point in the past 2 years as the country's airlines almost get back to normal.
More than 77% of domestic flights arrived on time in March. Woohoo! Up from 71% in the same month last year, according to the Bureau of Infrastructure and Transport Research Economics. It's closer to, though not quite at, the long-term average of 81% of flights arriving on time. Neither Qantas nor Virgin have really fully recovered from COVID and the return to service period. There have been staff shortages, service difficulties, problems with air traffic controllers, problem with baggage handlers, led to delays, cancellations. Ultimately, Alan Joyce, the Qantas boss, stepped down. Now, flight cancellations, there's good news on that too. They're almost back to normal, 2.8% in March, still above the long-term average of 2.2%, but getting better.
Last one, story number 5. Meta's share price tumbled more than 15% after founder Mark Zuckerberg rekindled investor fears that he would not control costs, vowing to increase spending and turn the social media group into, quote, the leading AI company in the world.
It's all about AI. Meta's revenue jumped 27% to $36.5 billion in just 3 months, better than analyst expectations. The company, whose platforms include Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, raised the high end of its full-year capital expenditure guidance from $37 billion to $40 billion. Investors are worried that Mark Zuckerberg will spend too much in his push towards AI, according to the Financial Times. Zuckerberg is increasingly under pressure to keep pace in that race with groups like OpenAI/Microsoft and Alphabet's Google.
All right, there we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Friday, the 26th of April, 2024. Remember to hit follow on the podcast, and if 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.